So you're interested in learning everything there is to know about filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Ohio. Well, thankfully, you've come to the right place. So let's get right into it. Welcome to the Ascend Finance YouTube channel, where we help folks understand the cost and qualification for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Ohio. We actually built a free Chapter 7 calculator so you can estimate the cost, qualification, and pros and cons of filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Ohio. Whether you live in a small town or a big city, the Chapter 7 calculator gives you specific results based on your personal information and zip code. Today, I'm going to go through a few things. First, it's going to be the cost to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Ohio. Second, how you actually qualify for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Ohio. Third, whether your assets are protected if you file Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Ohio. And then fourth, should you file Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Ohio? Now, I will say though that this video is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal advice. As I'm a researcher myself, I'm sure you're trying to get as much information as you can right now, so let's make this short and sweet by getting right into the first thing: how much it costs to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Ohio. When it comes to filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy, there are several factors an attorney may consider in estimating a total all-in estimate to file. To clarify though, here's what an attorney actually may look at when they're trying to determine how much they may charge someone. So first, they may look at the complexity of the case. Second, the urgency for that person to file. Third, the years of experience for that attorney. Fourth, the actual cash flow of the client. So sometimes attorneys may be a little bit more flexible if they don't have as much money to pay or the income's lower. And then five, location. So I kind of want to further go into each one real quick so we can kind of explain them. So first, complexity of the case, right? So this generally is going to refer to whether or not you have any assets you protected when you file. So if the client ends up having assets, it may take the attorney longer to kind of get the petition ready. So for urgency to file, whether you may have to file bankruptcy within a few days or months, an attorney may charge more or less depending on how much time they have to get it ready. And then attorney's years of experience, right? So this is going to be a little bit more straightforward. So if an attorney's been filing bankruptcies for more than 10 years versus someone that just started a year ago, they may actually be able to charge a bit more, but it really depends. And then fourth, the cash flow of the individual filing. So sometimes they may charge a smaller fee as a courtesy. Still, the average fee is usually charged regardless of the client's cash flow. Now, finally, the location. So this is actually more relative state versus state, as actually some states may have an average Chapter 7 fee of, let's say, $2,000 versus another state with an average of $1,200. Okay, so before I move on to the next part about kind of qualifying for a Chapter 7, if you actually want to have an estimate for the total all-in cost, you can take our free Chapter 7 calculator below. You don't even have to add an email address to see the results. The idea is it gives you the cost, pros and cons, and whether you actually may qualify for a Chapter 7. Keep in mind, if you don't want to add any contact info, you can just select none of the above at the end, and you don't even have to add an email address. All right, so now let's dive in how to actually qualify for a Chapter 7. So there's going to be three main factors to understand when determining your ability to file Chapter 7. Income, expenses, assets. So those are going to be the three things I want you to remember when trying to understand qualification. So each state is going to have most likely an income limit set for your household size. So what that's going to be considered is the means test income limit. I'll actually put the income limit for this state on the screen, but keep in mind that the means test updates every so often. So that being said, taking our free calculator that's actually in the description can be helpful, as it's actually going to be most up to date with the means test data for estimating your qualification for Chapter 7. Alrighty, so now let's talk about expenses, as the means test has a couple of parts. The first part of the means test is mainly considering your gross income versus the income limit for the household size. Now, the second part generally considers your disposable income. Sometimes individuals may fail the first part of the means test by making too much money, but sometimes pass the second part because the court finds they may not actually have enough disposable income. And so when that's the case, you may find that you can qualify for a 7 even though you make more than the income limit. Now, finally, let's talk about how assets are actually really important to the Chapter 7 decision-making process. So although having assets may not impact your qualification, it may actually impact your decision to file. Almost every state has its own exemptions that filers can use. So they may want to utilize that to protect their assets from being liquidated. Now, the main assets I'd say that individuals are mainly concerned about are their home or their cars. So let me kind of explain how that looks like it. Now, before I dive deeper into that and how they're all treated, I just wanted to say, like, if the video has ended up being helpful, or if you think it could be, a game changer for someone let's light up that like button below. It seems that YouTube tends to rank videos with more likes, and we like to think that our video can help those dealing with this kind of stressful topic. So let's make it go viral and create a positive impact. Now that we've covered how the assets may impact Chapter 7 from more of a high level, let's get into it and kind of explain how it all works. So there are what I'll call the 2 E's that can help you estimate the risk of you losing an asset when filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Ohio. Those 2 E's are equity and exemption. Now, one of the most common assets individuals are concerned about losing is their home. So let's use that for this example. At the time of this video, the estimated homestead exemption in Ohio is around $145,000, I think like $145,425. And that's gonna be for like single folks who are under the age of 65. I'll put a link in the description that'll have more information on the homestead exemption for Ohio, but we'll utilize that number for this example here. So let's say you have less than that $145,000 value, then it actually may be protected if you file Chapter 7. Though if you have, let's say, $80,000 more than the homestead exemption, then it actually could be at risk of being sold in the process. So what do you do if you have more equity than the exemption? Well, it's up to you, but it may make sense to look at alternatives. I actually have a bunch of videos that I've already made that kind of talk about all the alternatives to bankruptcy, but if you don't have all the time to watch those, you can just take our general debt options calculator. Like I said, linked in the description below. It'll break down the cost, duration, pros and cons of even bankruptcy and alternatives. So maybe helpful to look at. But finally, question that a lot of people are curious about is, should you file Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Ohio? What I'll say is it's up to you, of course. I mean, everyone's situation is unique, but if you're finding that either A, you have too much equity in a specific asset that you could maybe lose, or B, you're just not sure whether Chapter 7 is right for you, then it may make sense to just take our Chapter 7 calculator below to estimate the qualification and cost for a bankruptcy in Ohio. Again, it's free. That said though, if you're feeling like you just don't have time to fill out the calculator, you're welcome to just call us at 833-272-3631 and we'll try to answer all your questions over the phone. We can talk through the risk of losing assets, the qualifications for a Chapter 7, pros and cons, and even alternative options, so you can just feel like you're making the most informed decision. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you're able to get out of debt cheaper, easier, and faster. Take care.